This practice comes from my latest collaboration with Danielle from Nourished Way. Danielle specializes in hormone health through the lens of nutrition and has a lot of experience with regulating blood sugar. I've recently come back into monitoring my own blood glucose levels, having been diagnosed with prediabetes. And what I found through this continuous monitoring system is that I'm really prediabetic in my luteal phase. So early in the cycle, my numbers are pretty well managed through diet and exercise. But in the luteal phase, that high hormone territory, I start to see more challenge. It's more of a struggle to keep my blood glucose levels stable. And this is common across all menstruators, even if you are nowhere near the thresholds for diabetes in that range. We still see some insulin resistance for most women in the second half of the cycle in that high hormone phase. And this is when insulin isn't working as effectively and the cells aren't able to absorb glucose from the blood for energy. So it can create more erratic patterns in blood glucose, so steeper spikes and deeper valleys. And it can also create mood disturbances, can contribute to PMS, and can add to a sense of fatigue. So when the cells aren't absorbing energy quite as well, you might feel a little bit more tired, particularly after meals. So we teamed up on this practice to support you in that period in the 30 to 60 minutes after you eat a meal. This one is very low intensity, very gentle, and is just 15 minutes of total body movement to help create the energy draw on the blood glucose and neutralize the spike. I've seen this in practice with my continuous monitor where my blood glucose is trending upward, particularly after a meal that has some of those really healthful carbs. And after just 10 to 15 minutes of movement, I see those numbers drop at times as much as 40 points, which puts me back in kind of the healthy to normal range. So this one includes 15 movement patterns. We're moving continuously for 1 minute each, and it's just that short period of time. So it's not a huge time commitment. It won't leave you super sweaty. You want to stay in kind of a really low intensity effort the entire time, and it's something that's really going to serve your body. So if you are in healthy ranges for your blood sugar patterns, for your A1C, and you know that insulin is working effectively, you might just use this practice in the luteal phase only as kind of one of the tools in your toolbox to manage and stabilize blood sugar levels. If you're like me and you can see that you're trending toward type 2 diabetes and you have that more significant insulin resistance, you might use this practice anytime you have kind of a large bolus of carbs in your meal. So maybe it's after work and you're going back to your desk and you want to have that little bit of movement beforehand so that you can neutralize the spike before it has a chance to get out of hand. This is a great one for that. Really, a 10 to 15 minute walk does the trick. If you can get outside, that's probably the best option because it gives you so many benefits. But if it's late in the evening, maybe you have little ones sleeping or it's cold outside or it's dark, for whatever reason, if you need to practice at home, this one is here to support you. So let's get started. We are going to jump right into this short movement practice. Just make sure that you have a little bit of space to move around. We have 15 movement patterns that we're doing in continuous intervals of 1 minute each. So we'll start with our first one, a squat and rotate in 3, 2, 1. We squat it down and come up, rotate to the side. Make sure you're pivoting on that back heel when you rotate so that the knee, ankle, and hip are all in alignment as you twist to one side and then the other. So in this practice, we're looking for a steady state effort, a low intensity steady state effort. What that means is you're not moving extremely fast, but it is a rhythmic pace that you can breathe through. So a good gauge is whether or not you can keep your breath in and out through the nose, or whether you could carry on a conversation. It should feel like a nice and easy pace, something that you could keep up for a long period of time. So we've got about 15 more seconds, and then we transition right into our next exercise, which is going to be a reverse lunge with a knee sweep in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So come to one side of your mat. You're going to step behind you with that inside leg. It's a reverse lunge. Sweep the knee, make a nice big circle, squat, and then to the other side. So it's a reverse lunge, nice big knee sweep, squat, and switch. We're just stepping side to side, adding a bit of that hip mobility, that hip rotation, and back. So these practices, these movements will incorporate arms and legs in a lot of different ways to be able to create the energy demand that we need to draw down blood glucose after a meal. So as we recruit large muscle groups, whole body movement, we are taking that glucose from the blood and effectively reducing what could be a spike. After this, we're switching to downward dog and switch. So we're coming into our downward dog. Lift your hips high, bend the knees, lift the heels, gaze forward, and then simply come forward to plank. Tap each shoulder, cross the body, and back. So kind of a launch forward to plank, tap each shoulder, and come back. Breathe here. So continuously check in on the breath. Notice if you start to need extra oxygen through your mouth. And just kind of slow it down. So the reason there is that a high intensity workout, though beneficial at times, can be perceived as a stress on the body. And what happens is you'll get a release of cortisol, which then elevates blood glucose further. All things that we are trying to avoid in this post-meal timing. Last 3, 2, and 1. We're coming now to a curtsy lunge with a row. So you're going to step one leg behind you as you hug the elbows back behind you. So simply bending the elbows, straightening the arms, and adding the legs. So here we start to incorporate arms and legs together, creating that solid draw on the blood glucose. So again, high intensity can create a significant, albeit brief, spike in your glucose levels. So if you're in that postprandial window, your post-meal window, it's best to stick with low intensity, steady state work. So checking in with the breath often, making sure you're staying in that very manageable breath zone. We're here for 5, 3, 2, and 1. We're coming now to a walking burpee. So you'll start at the top of your mat. And again, this one, very low intensity, low impact. We reach the arms up and overhead, come down, touch the ground, step back either to plank or even bear plank with the knees bent, step forward, reach it up. And we're in this rhythm now for a minute. You can switch the leading leg with each rep. So walking back with the right, forward with the right, and then switching to the left. Back with the left, forward with the left, and up. So we're aiming for 10 to 15 minutes of movement, of exercise after meals, and it sort of stops that blood glucose spike in its tracks before it has a chance to get too high. 3, 2, 1, and rest. We're switching now to a lunge with a front raise and then a sumo squat with a lateral raise. So we step it back, reach the arms up and forward, come to the center, sumo lateral raise, and then to the other side, front raise. So I'm starting to feel a little bit high exertion where I'm having to breathe through my mouth. So you'll notice me slow the pace down a little bit so that the breathing can normalize in and out through the nose. And this is one of those where perhaps you're using it after your lunch hour or in the evening after dinner, not wanting to get super sweaty. I can't promise that you won't get sweaty at all, but in that low intensity zone, you should be able to manage the effort without too much exertion. We're switching now to our slow mountain climbers, slow being the operative word. So we're coming into plank, and here we're hugging the knee one at a time into the center. If this is creating too much abdominal pressure, particularly after a meal, you can be in tabletop and simply hug alternate knees in and back. So we're looking for a slow pace. And this one, you're activating the abdominal wall kind of all the way around. And that can help to massage the abdominal organs, create a little bit of heat in the core of the body, all of which will facilitate effective digestion and improve blood glucose levels. We are here for 5 more seconds. And slowly, carefully come on up. We're coming now into a reverse lunge to warrior 3. So here we're sweeping the arms up and then coming into warrior 3. We've got a bit of a balance challenge here as you lift and take the leg back. If that's too much, you can be moving through a leaning lunge instead of lifting the back foot. If it creates a bit of a cognitive load or any frustration with the balance, just take it out and focus on moving continuously. We're here for about 20 more seconds. This is one of the single-sided exercises where we'll do a full interval on each side. Stretch the spine long as you lean forward and find that balance point. And come up. We're coming now into a hip hinge with a lat pull down. And this looks like reaching forward, hinging at the hips. Feel the weight shift forward into the ball mounds of your feet. Hug the elbows down into your sides. Reach and come up. That's our new pattern. We reach forward, lat pull, forward and up. So we're trying to consciously activate the muscles in the back of the heart, so the upper back, the lats. Again, checking in with your breath, making sure you take any opportunities you need to adjust the pace to kind of stay in that nice neutral zone. If you have a heart rate monitor or a smartwatch that tracks those biometrics, you want to stay between 50 and 60% of your max, preferably a little bit lower, so that we're not shifting into the moderate to high intensity. Coming to reverse lunge to warrior 3 on side 2. Here we go. We step it back and balance. Try to keep the hips and shoulders square the entire time. So that back hip may try to pop open, but instead, can you keep both hip points facing down? Using your breath here, you should start to feel that energy demand in the front leg, the front glute. And that's great news for your blood sugar. So as you recruit these large muscle groups, they are demanding glucose, and their most ready supply is in your blood. So they're using that, drawing down the supply, and that creates a more neutral spike after your meals. We'll switch in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We're coming into a walkout push-up next. So you'll start at the back of your mat, slide the hands down the front of your legs, walk out to plank. You might take the knees down and find your push-up. Chest comes to the floor, squeeze the thumbs to the top. Walk it back all the way to stand. And again, we walk out to plank. So for me personally, I like to take the knees down in this post-meal zone, especially during push-ups. I find it can create some discomfort in the belly. So you find the choice that works for you, either knees up or knees down, just keeping that nice straight spine from crown to tail. So again, we're not looking for our max intensity. So taking the knees down is a great option to facilitate movement that doesn't create any discomfort whatsoever. We're switching now to our squat and toe touch. This one, we'll squat down, take a hand to opposite toe, or if that feels uncomfortable at all in the backs of the legs, you can take elbow to opposite knee. Here again, this one can have a nice slow pace. You're not moving kind of at your maximum effort like you would be in a body weight conditioning practice or a high intensity interval training session. Instead, here we're just looking for movement. Movement and breath. Your breath, as always, a great asset for metabolizing energy and helping keep your blood sugar levels stable. So we're in this squat to toe touch now for about 5-6 more seconds, and then we will switch to a lateral lunge with a knee hug. And this looks like wide legs. First option is to simply squat side to side. So as you're sitting back in that chair, tracking the knee over the big toe. If you want to add a little bit, we hug the knee and then we switch. So it's that knee hug across the body and then switch. Find your breath. This is one that can go from that low intensity to high intensity pretty quickly. So just be mindful, maybe slowing it down, maybe pausing in that balance so that you can keep a steady breath through the nose, in and out. Last few seconds here. We'll change in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We're coming to our plank up down to side plank. So here we lower into plank. Again, if you need to, knees are down to reduce the pressure on the stomach. You come down to your forearms, back up, and then side plank on each side. Stacking shoulders, stacking hips. Come down to your forearms, press it back up, side plank, and side plank. Reach, feel the rotation in the shoulders, and then really try to keep hips and shoulders square through that up-down movement so that you're engaging the upper body, the shoulders, and the chest. So we're not twisting or wiggling in and out, but staying nice and solid, that straight spine up and down. Last 3, 2, and 1. Our final movement pattern coming into a sumo squat. Toes are out, knees are out, heels are in. Hands come behind your head. We're going to take an elbow to the side, and back up through center. Come back down, side to side, and through the center. So this practice, I've been using it for a while now, and as you may have noticed, I wear the continuous glucose monitor since being diagnosed with prediabetes and just wanting to be able to hold off on medication and kind of use that monitoring system to keep my levels in check. And what I've found from this practice is if I use it in that 30 to 60 minute window after a meal, I can actually see the glucose spike. It's trending upward, and then 10 to 15 minutes of movement, and it drops as much as 40 points sometimes. So it's effective and it works. Rest, that is the end. So this little bit of movement goes such a long way to help stabilize your blood glucose levels, particularly in the luteal phase when we start to see that insulin resistance. So even if you are nowhere near the thresholds for diabetes or even prediabetes, this practice in the luteal phase can support more stable blood sugars, can improve your mood, and help lessen the symptoms of PMS. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you use it to support your body. Thank you for being here and for letting your body be moved.